Welcome to Country Meanderings with Margot. Tonight I'm in my kitchen and I'm making an easy meal, a seared chicken hash. I'm going to use cast iron because I love to cook in it, and it just makes a really good brown dish. And this is kind of like a casserole. It'll have potatoes and different spices in it. So we're going to get started on that. I have cut my chicken up and it's over here. Oh, this is about 3/4 of a pound of chicken. So I just put in a little bit of in a little dish, and I've got some olive oil. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You'll need a little bit more if you have more chicken, but this is just going to serve 2 or 3 people. And then you want to get a pinch of sea salt. I like to use Himalayan sea salt or Celtic sea salt, and put about a teaspoon of that on there. And then we're going to use another spice, an herbes de Provence, and this is a really good, this is how it's spelled. It has rosemary and lavender and thyme, and it's just a really good combination. It's a great chicken dish. So you'll want to put about a teaspoon of that on there, and you'll get all that. And then I'm going to add some cracked pepper. And that will be 1/2 to 1 teaspoon, depending on how peppery you want that. So we're going to just stir that up a little bit. And we'll let that marinate for 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll work on some other things. I've got my pan for potatoes. We're going to cube some potatoes, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my cast iron. This was my mom, so she got married in 1960, so at 61 years old. Cast iron is really good as a non-stick. The more you season it, when you use grease and different things like that, that grease gets this black patina on it, and it will actually help brown things, and things don't stick if you use the right temperature. You want to start with a medium high for this recipe, and the oil in it will keep it from sticking long term, but you want to leave it sit for a few minutes and not constantly stir it, because you want that browning to happen, and it will kind of release from the pan as it does that. So we'll show you a little bit of that later on. But if you can get a good cast iron, this is a 10-inch, which is really good for four or 5 people for a serving, and I use this all the time for numerous things. You can find these new, you could get a Lodge. I have several. This was my mom's that was old, but I have some old ones that I've gotten off of Etsy, which have amazing seasoning on them. So just find you a good cast iron, and the more you use it, the more seasoned it will get. So we're going to be cooking on that tonight. And here in just a minute, we'll be cutting up potatoes and moving on to some other steps. So on the potatoes, I have these organic potatoes, but you can use whatever potatoes you want. These are small potatoes, like a new potato, so you can do red new potatoes. You can use whatever you want. So we're going to wash these and then get to cutting. Welcome back. We're just finishing up on the potatoes, and I'm dicing them in small cubes, as you can see, probably about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to finish those up, and we're going to put it in a pan that I already have of boiling water, and we'll boil that for about 10 minutes till they start to get soft. You want them not all the way soft, but not hard anymore. So we're going to put that in there. And as those are cooking, we're going to cut up an onion, and we're going to slow cook an onion. We're going to add some butter. You can add a little bit more olive oil, and slow cook that for like 15 or 20 minutes till it just becomes this rich golden brown, and it's going to give you a lot of flavor in your hash that you have. So I'm going to use just a small to medium onion. Some people like more onions. This is just what I had on hand, so we're going to make do with that and cut up this onion, just kind of a fine to medium. And after we get this chopped up, we're going to put it in our pan with a little bit of butter. And we're going to melt that butter first and then let that get good and warm, and then we'll put our onions in there, and then we're going to slow cook that. So we'll be back in a minute for that. All right, we're back, and we've got the onions all chopped over here, and got a good pile of those. I've got my pan. In fact, I'll show you my pan over here. This is the pan for the onions. It's a little 8-inch, and I put just enough olive oil to coat it on the bottom, and I've been heating that up for a couple minutes. So you'll want to do that and get your pan good and ready to start that. So after we do that, I'm going to get some butter, and we're going to put, since I don't have very many onions, I'm going to put about 1.5 tablespoons of butter in there and let that start to melt. And I can already hear it sizzling in the background, so we're going to put our onions over there. All right. We've got the onions browning, and I can already smell them. Onions burned my eyes, so I had to dry my eyes after I cut them. But we've got the onions here, and I've got this on medium. It's kind of sizzling really good, and we're going to just coat those with all the butter. And we're going to let that start to brown just a little bit for a couple minutes. Now that we've got that all covered, and then we're going to add some sugar. A little tiny bit of sugar, it'll bring the moisture out and help to brown them, and they'll just cook up really good. And we've got our potatoes going, and I am going to turn on the skillet for the chicken, and we're going to do that, and I'm going to put a little tiny bit of olive oil in the bottom, even though we've got a little bit in there, and just get it warming up just a little tiny bit. And get that pan ready, and we'll let it go for a minute or two, and I've got that on about medium high, and we'll let that get warm for a couple minutes so we can get a good sear on our chicken. Our chicken's been marinating. I did stir it a couple times to get that, and I added another teaspoon of that herbes de Provence because it did need a couple teaspoons, and 1 teaspoon was probably not enough, so I did add a little bit more. So that's all marinated and is looking good. So we'll let that oil heat up, and we'll put some sugar in our onions. I know it seems kind of strange to put sugar in onions. We're just going to do a couple teaspoons, and with all the savory you won't really smell it, but it will help those brown really nice and pretty. And we're going to put that in there, and we'll look at it and see what it looks like. I just love the smell of onions. I can be cooking anything, and my husband will walk in and ask me what I'm cooking that smells so good, and it's like onions and butter, and that's it. So it always smells really good. Okay, I'm going to turn that down to low because we're going to let that cook probably for another 15 minutes and let it get just a really brown and caramelized, and those flavors will come out. So you want to have that kind of on low so they don't burn. All right, so we're done with that. And now our pan is ready for our chicken, so I'm gonna put that in here. It's good and hot. You can hear that sizzling. I'm gonna spread it out. I'll show you what that looks like. You can hear it cooking. So that's really good. And we'll be stirring that, and I'll show you how that browns up really nice. We're going to let that sit when we put it in. I did turn it down a little bit, down to medium, now that the pan is really hot, because cast iron will hold the heat more than a lot of other pans, so you'll need to turn it down as you're cooking after it gets warmed up and gets going. I use a spatula a lot of times, just a good metal spatula on my cast iron. And see how that just comes off if you let it go for about a minute. And we'll flip that. Let it get on all sides. Oh, smelling amazing. It smells really, really good. And you really just let that cook for 3 or 4 minutes, because it's going to cook in the oven when we're all done, because your cast iron can go in the oven. So we've got that cooking, it's browning. We'll let that brown another minute or two, and then I'll flip it, and then we'll start adding all the stuff together. And there's the onions, those are looking good. So I'm just gonna tend to all this, and I'll be back with you in just a minute. All right, I just got the hash out of the oven, and it is golden brown, and it's smelling amazing with all the seasonings on it and the butter and herbs. It's smelling delicious. I'll show it to you. It's got this really beautiful, just golden brown. You can top that with a little bit of cheese, some Parmesan, or even cheddar if you want to do that. I'm going to just eat mine plain and enjoy that with a salad, or maybe do some green beans with some chicken broth and bacon bits and cook that up and just have an easy meal. I did get this out of this cookbook. It's the new cast iron skillet cookbook, which is very good. I have food allergies, and so I adapt all kinds of recipes or make my own, but I did get this out of this cookbook for tonight. But you can do a lot of different varieties, do different seasonings, and add different things in. You could even mix some vegetables in with that if you wanted to. So anyway, we're going to enjoy that, and I had so much fun cooking with you and doing this wonderful dish, and we're going to sit down and enjoy it. But until next time, blessings to you. Bye.